So before we get up here and play with the band, I was going to ask if anybody had any questions related to just about anything. An open forum. Who gets to be first? KXM. Oh, that's good. I might want to play some. That's a good question. When is KXM coming out? The hardest part of this business is the business. So that's a really hard question to answer. I mean, I'm good at making records, pretty good at making records. I've done a lot of them, and playing in bands and doing my thing and writing songs, composing and recording. But everything that comes after that is a real challenge for me because I don't have that side of the brain that works very well. So, and in this business, historically, people take advantage of that, and there's all kinds of casualties that do what I do, and they can tell you all about it. But I'm sure you've heard the stories. So, it's kind of sad that the actual creators of whether you want to call it a product on the marketing side or music and art on the creative side. The person that actually conceives and creates and executes that is the last person in line, the way the system is built right now. And that's the case with a lot of things in the way this world works, especially in the kind of amped up capitalism that we live under. Capital wins, labor doesn't win. So it's a tough field to negotiate as far as, like, you're asking me, what happens after you make a record? It's such a convoluted maze, the process and the business, and it's been created that way intentionally by design to keep people like me from knowing what's going on. It's all a shell game. So it's very, very tricky, and at my age, 58, I still haven't figured it out. I've gone to junior college, I've read dozens of books, I've talked to people endlessly, and continue to, and still do not understand it. Which is pretty sad. And most of the people that I work with and have been in bands with, they're very smart people, don't either. Jeff Pilson and I just had a conversation about an aspect of what we do, which is the mechanicals, or record. And it's a very complicated pie. It's tied to the publishing. It's tied to the printing of the record and the sales. There's a company called Harry Fox. There's your performance right organizations. There's your publisher. There's your writers. There's all these different streams of potential income, but it's very hard to untangle. At the end of the day, the bottom line is the musician and the writers lose most of the time. And I was pretty astonished that Jeff and both myself didn't even know the basics, 101 of publishing and some of the other aspects of our own business that been working in for 40 years. So KXM has two plans, an A plan and a B plan. The A plan is to sign to a traditional record deal, which we're just about ready to go out and look into. But I'm not a fan of that. People aren't selling records like they used to, but there are a lot of people in the world that I'm sure would love the music that we're creating. We just have to let them know that it exists, and how do we do that? So one thing we thought was having a purely digital campaign, iTunes, maybe Amazon, and release one song a month for a year. So essentially you're getting a whole year window to promote the band, and gives people more time to tell their friends and them tell their friends, and for interviews to get out there and to expand the awareness of the record. I thought that was kind of an interesting out-of-the-box way of going about it. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, you have to be flexible in this business. I've learned to do a lot of things besides play guitar. I build guitars. They're called Mr. Scary guitars. I build them by hand in my backyard, believe it or not. I build about 10 a year. People just find me. I have a website. And I love doing it, and I sort of lose sense of time and space and wake up and I've done something that's beautiful and tangible, and I get paid for it immediately, unlike the record business. So I'm a big fan of working people, and I came from a working family, and I was always told and taught to equate work with love, and that's what I do. So I love my work, and I created these things. I've been part of the process of creating them anyways. But I do, I have my hands on everything. I carve and wind the pickups. I do everything but build the necks, shape the necks, but I don't have the equipment to build them. But I do them in my backyard and in my garage, and I love it. And then and each one is unique, and I sign it and grave it, and I make up this kind of artistic little certificate of authenticity, and I talk to the buyer at all points in the, in the construction of the guitar as it evolves, and it's really a wonderful experience. And everybody's, it's kind of just a really magical moment in their lives because it's such an exceptional instrument, and we have this communication process, and they're part of the process, and so and I don't know. Anyways, I just kind of fell into it, and I always bolted guitars together and sort of supplemented my income back in the 70s when I was teaching guitar on the side, and I would make my students guitars, and I would buy bodies from Charvel and Mighty Might and wherever, just $20 and stuff they were throwing away. I'd bolt them together to sell them to my students, and that just sort of evolved into, I'm not really a luthier, but I'm learning. So, anyways. I forgot the question. I can tend to ramble on. Sorry about that. Oh, sorry.
What gauge of strings do you use, and what brand is it?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I just switched to 9.5 D'Addario. There, easy answer.
Yeah.
You don't need to clap for 9.5 D'Addario. Doesn't clap for Shadow Train and helping the Indians and the poor people, but he claps for 9. No, I know. I'm just kidding. I feel like David Letterman up here.
Yep.
Huh?
Next one. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I have a question for you, George. Two questions, actually. First, can you describe basically the scene basically in the early 80s when you taught, and the metal scene when you started playing guitar with like Van Halen and Randy Rhoads, that sort of thing? What was it like? And then the second question is, how did you become associated with ESP guitars?
Well, I'll answer you might have to remind me of the first question because I'll answer the second one first. Well, the story behind ESP guitars was I had a guitar tech named Matt Masiandaro, who was and is one of my best friends. He's been the best man at all 9 of my weddings, godfather to all 16 of my children. I'm kidding. And he wanted to get off the road, and he was my guitar tech all through Dokken and everything. And so I was sort of instrumental in helping him get his job at ESP Guitar when they were on 48th Street in New York. And he started out in the mailroom, and now he's president and chairman of the board, has been for a while, and they've done extremely well. And I like to take a little bit of credit for helping that happen in some small way. So, and I've been with him 27 years. So that's we were on tour, and we were doing, I think, playing Meadowlands. And I think it was a night off or something, and we were going to go visit Kramer. And I had an ARIA endorsement. It was my first guitar endorsement. They gave me a guitar with a skull on it, and I was really excited. It sucked. I played one note on the Tooth and Nail record with it just to say I did. But I was really excited because nobody had ever given me a guitar before, I didn't care if it was terrible or what. And I thought, you know what, I'm selling records. Maybe I can actually get some decent guitars. So I went to Kramer, and they said, well, we can't really build you what you want, but there's this company called ESP in Japan where we get all our stuff from, and they probably could. So we went to Japan because we had to go tour there, and we met with ESP and all these guys out there in these lab coats and micrometers, and they're little guitar scientists, and they're all huddling around. And we spent the whole day there, and we came up with the Kamikaze, all the specs for it, and they built it, and it was beautiful. And so that's it. So Matt went on to take the company to new heights, and I've been here ever since, and they're family to me. Cool. And what was, I'm sorry.
The other question was the early 80s and the metal scene and everything, it was pretty competitive. You had Rhoads, you had Van Halen and everything. And I always known that you had taught at Musonia for a while after Randy left and stuff. So can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
It was, the LA scene was just great in the 70s and the 80s. I would even tend to say more in the 70s, late 70s. It was very competitive guitar-wise and band-wise, but what was interesting was the bands were all unique and different. There wasn't this thing like you have today where if somebody's successful, everybody has to become that band and mimic that. There's Nickelback's famous, okay, we got to be Nickelback. Okay, now this band's famous, we needed 10 more of these bands, and everybody just piles on. Back then, it was almost the opposite. It was like everybody was repelling each other magnetically. So if there was one somebody did something like this, then somebody would do something completely different. So I remember there was a band that I loved that should have been famous. They were called A La Carte. And it was like Rocky Horror Picture Show meets ZZ Top. They'd come out in drag. They were all heroin addicts, which isn't good, but whatever. It was three-piece, but Kevin, the guitar player, was basically sounded like Leslie West. It was awesome blues player, and a little baby 50 and the old small 810 Marshall cabinet, and these guys would come out and just they were great. And then there was some other band, I can't remember the name, and they were a magic band, and they would have holograms on stage, and it was very progressive. And then, of course, it was Van Halen, who were frightening. Every guitar player in town was, who is this guy? He's got some weird name, and got to go see him. He's just going to change your world, which he did. It was Randy, and quite a few other guys that were, not so well known and maybe didn't make it, but were fantastic. So it was a really interesting scene, and competitive, but in a more interesting way because everybody had different styles. So it was a great time to grow up and be learning music and being in a band, evolving. In the Southern California scene at the time. And I kind of miss those days.
Georgie has a question right here.
Yeah.
Stand up.
How old were you when you started playing guitar?
Well, I'm not going to tell you how old I am. Are you good at math? Okay, so I started when I was 10, and I've been playing 48 years. Who's buried in Grant's tomb?
Who else?
It's kind of late to start now. I see the kids. I played with some kid. I did the erotic rock fantasy camp, that thing they do?
Yeah.
And I was playing, and they brought this kid up. He was freaking 6 or 7 or 8 or something. He was playing Mr. Scary, like note for note. And I was like, wow. Your hands aren't even big enough to play and he'd have full-size guitar. I was like, when I was 10, this is what I thought guitar playing was. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I had no idea what a chord or anything was, so I thought when I saw guys going like this, they were covering up the strings they didn't want to play and just strumming it. And like for the first year, that's how far I got. And then the first song I learned was Penetration, which I'm trying to remember what is. It's like a surf song. Or something like... Or something. See, I don't even know it. 48 years, I still can't play it right. Yeah, it was like a Venture song or something.
All right, George. As musicians, we always run into moments when our passion seems to get lost. And does that happen to you? And what do you do in those moments?
Does it ever? All of us. I would think most of us. That's just human nature. Life it's ups and downs. That's. And so, I gotta be quite honest with you. I have not picked up a guitar in 2 months before yesterday. Wow. And we had a massive water leak in our home and mold, and so I basically took it upon myself to take the place apart and rebuild it. And when I got done refinishing 31 kitchen cabinets, my wife decided she didn't like it. No. So I did it again. So that's 62 kitchen cabinets, plus the floors, plus the tile, plus, and every day, from time you get up to time you go to bed, 2 months of that, plus trying to work and do your other stuff and the kids and other things. So I didn't touch a guitar for 2 months. And to be quite honest, you lose a little bit, but you get it back. But the thing is, I think you need to do that to kind of recalibrate yourself once in a while. Because if you just stay on it and woodshed, it's like there's no excitement left, I like to be excited about what I'm playing, and rather than just, that's cool, technically, but I'm not feeling it. I want to feel it, because if I feel it, you're going to feel it, I know, maybe that's kind of a lazy man's justification for being lazy, and that's quite possibly true, but I'd say there's an element of truth to that, and everybody's different, so there's a balance. But being able to walk away is healthy. But also, I think, combine that with things that inspire you. In other words, going to see bands and musicians that inspire you can improve your playing leaps and bounds. When I was a kid, I went and saw ZZ Top at the Tres Hombres tour at Long Beach Arena. It was sold out, changed my life forever to this day. I said, when he had his 58, 59 Les Paul down at his knees, Billy Gibbons, with his 3 or 4 Tres Hombres, or his, whatever they were called, what were those amps he had with the horns? Somebody's got to know that. Rio Grande. They're modified Marshall, 200-watt Marshalls. I'd never heard anything like that in my life. It changed my whole life. That was so loud and so powerful, and every solo that he did, I never wanted him to stop, because it just brought you up. It was like spiritual experience, and I was like, just don't ever stop. And when he'd stop, I'd get depressed. Yeah. And when I had to leave, I just like, God, I'm not going to have that in my life anymore. I listen to records, yeah, they're cool, but it wasn't like that, you know. And so, always in the back of my mind, that just shot me to a whole other level, because now I got something to shoot for. You know what I mean? Or even today, you know, you go see, like I just went and saw Animal as Leaders with Meshuggah. Well, I mean, I'm not a metal player, but I appreciate it. And these guys are insane, you know, Thorndal and this new guy in Animal as Leaders, the black dude with the bald head. He's just plays an 8-string, 9-string, whatever it is. I'm just like, Jesus. You got to be pushing yourself all the time. It is so inspiring. So I went home and I'm like writing Meshuggah songs, even though I don't know how to write Meshuggah songs. You know what I mean? But it gets you out of your box and it gets you motivated, you know. So that's important too. And then when you go back and hit it after taking a rest, you've kind of recalibrated your thinking. You're not on the same path anymore, you know. So you're going somewhere else. And I think as you get older, that's important to do, because the one thing I never wanted to be was like some of my heroes have become, where they've just rested on their laurels and haven't continued to grow and do, or at least do what they did back in the day. For instance, Clapton, to me. He's a millionaire, I guess, but he's up there. Why aren't you playing the ES-335 Dokken with the Marshall stacks at Royal Albert Hall, you know, with balls, you know, with Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce? They're still alive, hello. I don't get that. I guess if I was in his shoes, I'd get it, because he doesn't need to, essentially. But Beck, on the other hand, is my hero and has continued to evolve into incredible places. So, you know, I always vowed to at least change, if not improve, you know. So there you go. Yeah,
There, go ahead.
you guys got a lot of questions, man. It's awesome.
I was. This might be a difficult question to answer, but I was curious as to what would you say is the. I don't know if you can pinpoint it to one thing, but what's the most important lesson you've learned as a professional musician?
2 things. Find your own voice if that's possible, because if you have your own style, nobody can compete with you. Don't be a second-rate Yngwie, be a first-rate you. You know, then you're in your own bubble, in your own world, and you can't be compared or judged against anything else. And secondly, whether you're a master of all trades, at least be a jack of as many as possible. So, for instance, myself and people I know, we're engineers. We build studios. We build equipment. We're composers. We have to understand legal mumbo-jumbo, you know, the lexicon of the legalese. We have to understand our business, publishing, marketing, distribution, how everything works in the supply chain, how the money flows. Always watch the money. And that's true with anything, because that's always what it's about, unfortunately, you know, in the system.
Can I get one more question in?
Yeah.
Also, I was curious, is there anything you would say that's helped you more than other areas as a professional, like something you did that got you farther than other things you did, or is it more of a conglomeration of things?
Well, unconsciously, I just practiced a lot and tried to just be the best I could be. Somebody noticed that, and it was a huge happy accident that I ever found any kind of success. But it was because I did that work. It was, as I said, a happy accident. I mean, it was unintentional. So I think you just do the right things for the right reason, and then the right things will happen most of the time. Maybe. But don't sue me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah.
Hey, what's status of Lynch Mob as far as any touring coming up, or with the other any tours coming up? Do you stay in touch with Oni, London, any of those people? Just kind of what's going on
story.
there?
It's actually a very painful story. I mean, obviously a band with my name on it that I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into for going on 3 decades now, and all uphill battle. You know, we never achieved the success that Dokken did or anything like that, and maybe we didn't deserve it, but we keep trying. But here's the thing. I have this grand experiment, I believe, and it's sort of a test of human nature. And I always think that, or I've been taught that people who do the right thing most of the time, 51% of the time, people do the right thing for 51% of the people, you know, in the worst case scenario. So, and as I told you earlier, my dream is to play with a band of my friends and enjoy the experience and the journey, whether it succeeds or fails, whatever you call success and failure. But if you enjoyed the experience of success and you made music that you're proud of, so that'll live beyond you. So, and hopefully it's historically significant music. So knowing all that, you know, I want to be just the guitar player in a band of friends. So what I did with Lynch Mob is I offered to just basically give the band to the band. So, you know, where I owned it, but I was just saying, well, you know what, let's all work equally hard, and we all, a rising tide will float all boats. Because I don't want somebody driving up in a Ferrari and somebody else driving up in a Yugo and being jealous at him, and now you're going to force bad songs on us, and we're going to have resentment, we're going to break up and fight, and we want to stay together. And we'll all do fine, you know. We'll all have places to live, and we'll have cars to drive and food to eat, and we'll be okay. And we'll have each other's backs. Well, I assumed that all that would happen. Guess what? People aren't built that way, and I didn't know it. So, anyways, egos and greed reared its ugly head, and the band just fell apart on all kinds of different levels. And I just sat there and watched it happen. It was so depressing. This happened late last year, and actually on my birthday, everybody quit. And that was my manager, my agent, the singer, and the bass player all quit on the same day. And these are guys I loved, and we had half a record done. We had to send $90,000 back to the record company. We had to cancel all our shows. Well, I don't know if it was $90,000, but it was a lot of money that we were all depending on. Had my year all planned out, and that was the end. And it created it filtered down through my family and my friends and everything else that I do, and it was very, very painful. I just could not understand it, neither could my wife, and we've been going through a lot dealing with that. And it made me think that, you know, maybe this ridiculous dream that I have of this kind of ideal situation can't really work. So I had to go back to, you know, back to my books and kind of read, and I was reading Voltaire, who's a philosopher. At the end of his life, he concluded that the only system that works is a benevolent dictatorship. And you have to assume that a dictator will remain benevolent, which is probably not going to happen. So, as of this moment, I'm the benevolent dictator.
Okay,
George.
go ahead. Yeah, back in the back.
But no, we don't have any plans. We have an acoustic record coming out that we had already done. It's live. It's EP. Souls Away. No, that's ancient history. I've got KXM. I've got this other group called the Infidels, which is the rhythm section from War. It's very heavy funk. It's all instrumental. I've got the Shadow Train Band. I got KXM. I've got, what else do I got? Oh, Tooth and Nail. I keep forgetting to mention Tooth and Nail. See, 2 people bought it. It's called Slave to the Empire. It's very political. It's Jeff and I live right down the street from each other. We've remained friends over all these years. We love writing music together. He's in Foreigner, so his time that's available to this is limited. Mick Brown is also in the band, so it's Dokken without Don. And we have guest singers. We had Doug Pinnick. We had, who'd we have? Sebastian Bach on the last record. A couple, Robert Mason and Ripper Owens. So the next record, we're going to have another 4 or 5 guest singers, and we've already written all the recorded all the Dokken stuff. We just have to. We're starting up next Wednesday, I believe, or next Monday, and we're going to start writing the last 6 songs, and we're going to have the second TNN record out later this year. Yeah. Anybody ever see the video for that? Yeah. That was my first experience in directing a video, and I don't know what a video director does. I think he plugs in the chords and like makes sandwiches and says cut or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, speaking of which, George, we have time for 2 more questions. That's what a director does.
Okay, Hitler.
Back in the back.
George,
Yeah.
out of all your work in Dokken, which would you say was your favorite as a guitar player to play out of all your Dokken work?
I hate to give you an obtuse answer. I know that's a gay word, but whatever. It's not a direct answer. I don't have a favorite song that, you know, there's a lot of them I love playing, and there's some of them I don't love playing so much. I pretty much don't like the Just Got Luckies and It's Not Loves are a little bit light in the loafers for me. I like the Heaven Comes Down and the Kiss of Death and the Scary and Tooth and Nail and all that kind of stuff. But what Dokken always lacked to me was a sense of soul and that blues element and that kind of gritty, organic thing that I love and I grew up with, because I grew up with blues music and gospel music. So to me, when we jammed was magical. When Jeff and I and Mick, and sometimes Don, would just go off live, and we'd like have a little riff in the bus, in the back of the tour bus, and we had a little recording set up back there. We'd always practice, and I said, "Oh, hey, check this riff out. Let's do this tonight." Mick, play the beat on his lap. Just follow me. We're gonna do this. Don't tell Don. He would like, "What?" And we'd just go off. It was great to me, because the audience was witnessing the creative moment versus the recreative moment, which is a completely different experience, if they can appreciate it, which is what we're going to do here in a second. Yeah.
Do you have any words of wisdom for any modern musicians that seek fame and fortune?
Any advice for modern musicians seeking fame and fortune? Is that what you asked me? Why would you want fame and fortune? Why don't you just make good music and then the good stuff will maybe come? Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, because if you want fame and fortune for fame and fortune's sake alone, then you might as well be, what's her name? Those people that are, girls are famous for doing nothing. I forget what yeah, all that shit. Really? Let's make the world a better place, dude. Come on. The cult of personality and celebrity is just got to end at some point. When important people like Howard Zinn and John Trudell and Noam Chomsky are not recognized, in our school books, in our history books, and in our, present-day media. The wrong people are the heroes. Anyways, okay.
Yeah.